All for One's Guide to a Peaceful Retirement, written by Scottish Sunshine and read for you by Eleanor Elizabeth. Chapter 22. Friends are the family you choose. Summary. It's time for the boys to go to school, although Shoto is worried his friends will forget him. Izuku, age 6. Shoto isn't sure he's looking forward to school. He understands why he can't go to the same school as Izuku and Tenya, he thinks, but it doesn't change the fact that he's ever so slightly scared, because he might be in the same school as Natsuo, but they won't be in the same class. Shoto won't know anyone. Izuku and Tenya will be together every day, and they knew each other before Shoto came along, and what if they decide they don't want him anymore? What if they find someone else to be their friend, and leave Shoto all alone again? Shoto sniffs and wipes furiously at his eyes. He knows he's being unfair. It's why he hasn't told his friends, because what if they get angry that Shoto thinks he might leave them behind? He doesn't want them to be angry at him, especially if they're going to different schools. Oh, Shoto. Shoto freezes and feels the tears getting worse, because now Mama will be worried and sad, and Shoto doesn't like that. He promised himself that he'd never make Mama cry, and now she probably will. Are you scared of your new school? Mama asks as she settles down on the floor next to him. Shoto presses his face into his penguin plush and shakes his head. He hesitates and shrugs. Is it because you're scared that Izuku and Tenya won't want to be your friends anymore? Shoto nods. He should have known Mama would guess. She's so smart after all, but now she's probably going to tell him he's being silly. Because he is. Because Izuku and Tenya would never. I understand. Shoto pauses and slowly turns his head so he can see Mama from one eye. Mama just smiles and puts her arm around his shoulders. Izuku was your very first friend after all. Both he and Tenya were friends before you came along, and of course you'll be going to different schools, and we don't exactly live nearby. Shoto sniffles because she's exactly right. What if they find someone better at their new school? What if... I can't promise you'll stay friends, Mama sighs. But Izuku and Tenya, they're good boys, and you can still meet up on the weekends, and maybe you'll be able to find another friend at school. Shoto isn't so sure. Izuku and Tenya are the bestest friends ever, and he doesn't think he could ever find anyone nearly as great as them. Besides, he won't know anyone, and what if the other children are mean? Shoto doesn't want mean friends, or friends with fire quirks, or friends that shout a lot. Actually, we'll be seeing Izuku quite a lot. Mama perks up and smiles. I just spoke with Midoriya, and... Would you like to be Izuku's cousin? Cousin? Shoto frowns as he tries to figure out how they can be cousins. He kind of understands siblings, because if Mama married Mr. Midoriya, then Izuku and he would be brothers, but he isn't sure about cousins. Does Izuku have an uncle Mama will marry? Yes, cousin, Mama laughs, and it's still the prettiest sound in the world. See, Izuku's Mama, she got very sick, and, well, she died. Shoto frowns, because he's wondered at times where Izuku's Mama was, and at first he thought maybe she was nasty, like father, and that's why Izuku only had his papa. But then they went round to Izuku's house, and there were loads of photos of a lady that had green hair, even in Izuku's room, and Shoto decided that maybe Izuku's Mama wasn't nasty, because if she was, Izuku wouldn't want her in his room. But if she got sick and died, that's really not fair. Izuku's super nice, and so his Mama was probably super nice too, and Shoto doesn't know why bad things happen to nice people and not villains. But she was a very nice person, Mama continues, and she would have loved us all very much, so from now on she's going to be your Auntie Inko, and will tell people she was my sister. Mama wipes her eyes, and Shoto considers this information, then he smiles. If he's Izuku's cousin, then they're family, and family stays together so they can still meet up, even though they're at different schools. And Mr. Midoriya will be his family too, and he's super strong and super scary, so they'll be safe. And Auntie Inko must be an angel, since she was so nice, and that means she looks after Izuku to make sure he's safe. But sometimes maybe she still goes and helps other people too, and she probably told Mr. Midoriya to punch father. And then Shoto thinks of a great way for him to be brave on his first day of school. Mama, could you dye my hair green? Oi, You're not Deku. No, I'm Shoto. Shoto frowns as he looks away from his All Might pencil case to a very angry-looking blonde. He isn't sure he wants to be friends with the boy, but he's polite, and you never know. I don't care. The boy glares at him, his hands letting off some strange pops, and then he stomps off to the entrance of the classroom. Shoto doesn't follow. He doesn't know who Deku is, but he must not be very smart. Shoto wouldn't want to be friends with someone as angry and mean as the blonde. Maybe Deku couldn't find anyone nice to be his friend, though, and was really lonely. Shoto can kind of understand. He was kind of lonely before Izuku. Shoto perks up, because maybe he could be Deku's friend. Then Deku wouldn't have to be friends with someone who looks kind of scary. And then Shoto could introduce him to Izuku and Tenya, and then Deku would know just what nice friends should look like. Deku doesn't arrive, though, and when the teacher tells them to take their seats, the blonde stomps off to his desk, a really scary frown on his face. Shoto ignores him, busy repeating what he's going to say as children start introducing themselves. He practiced with Toya all week, so the line comes easily when it's his turn, and he says with a smile, "My name is Shoto Yukiyama, and my quirk is Frost, and when I grow up, I want to be a hero." The blonde snorts, and Shoto resists the urge to stick his tongue out at him. Then the blonde stands up and declares, "My name is Bakugo Katsuki, and I'm going to be the #1 hero." Chapter 23. Police are annoying. Summary. Izuku is kidnapped. Izuku age 6. It's a Thursday when Hizashi's world comes crashing down. He's sitting through yet another board meeting, barely resisting the temptation to doodle on the financial reports, when his secretary pokes her head into the room. "Mr. Midoriya, sir, you're wanted in your office." Hizashi would normally dismiss her, but her makeup is smudged and her voice quivers, and it's so out of character that before he even stands up, he has a terrible feeling. So he leaves the meeting early, trying and failing to ignore the woman's sniffles. He almost panics when he sees the two detectives. They're in plain clothes, of course, but there's something instantly recognisable about all police in Hizashi's experience. They're both wearing serious expressions, but since they're not accompanied by heroes, Hizashi is fairly certain they're not planning to arrest him. But they're here, and he can't seem to get the image of his sobbing secretary out of his mind, so he dismisses any pleasantries. He's a father first. He can be nice once he's sure everything is all right. "What happened?" he asks, and then adds, "Is Izuku all right?" The younger of the two, an unassuming man with no obvious quirk, hesitates, obviously uncomfortable, and Hizashi feels like someone's punched him in the stomach. No immediate answer is almost worse than a no, because his mind is working overtime, coming up with scenario after scenario, each worse than the last. The older of the officers, a taller officer with the head of a dog, clears his throat. "Perhaps you should sit down, Midoriya." "Where is Izuku?" Hizashi demands. He's seconds away from activating half a dozen quirks. He doesn't care if All Might is ready to arrest him. He doesn't care if he's thrown into Tartarus. He doesn't care if he's killed, because he needs to know that Izuku is all right. But then the senior detective speaks, and Hizashi wishes he could take it back, because not knowing was not so bad. At least he could pretend perhaps he was overreacting. "I'm afraid Izuku Midoriya has been kidnapped." Izuku isn't entirely sure what happened. He likes school. He's in the same class as Tenya, so they always pair up during recess. They were talking about the upcoming UA Sports Festival, and Tenya was excited because his grandfather offered to take him to the festival. Then Izuku choked on something, and Tenya screamed for the teacher and tried to grab him, and then Izuku fell onto a hard floor, coughing. It's dark, and Izuku doesn't even get to look around before someone pulls a loose sack over his head. Someone else grabs his hands and twists them behind his back, and then he hears a soft click and he can feel metal digging into his wrists. "Step on it!" someone yells, and Izuku is thrown to the floor of the van, because it has to be a van. Nasty people who take children always drive vans. Speeds off. Izuku wants to be brave, because he's going to be a hero one day. But he's not a hero yet. He's a scared child who really wants his papa, and as he's hurled upright, he can't help his tears. Hizashi has never hated the police before. When he was all for one, they were little more than an inconvenience, a source of amusement as they bumbled around desperately playing catch-up. But now, they are actively preventing him from searching for Izuku, when his son is out there somewhere, terrified and alone, and although, for obvious reasons, he hasn't been entirely truthful with the police, he can't for the life of him think of who could be responsible. Which is just all the more reason for him to be out there, because torture is an incredibly effective method of investigation. Someone knocks on the office door, and if it's Tsukashi with another cup of tea, Hizashi will throw it at the detective. He looks up to tell the man as much, and pauses. "Hi, Takashi Ida greets him with an awkward smile. Hisashi is not terribly close with the head of Ida 10, but he normally looks a lot more put together. The dishevelled hair and navy sweatpants are unusual enough, although in other circumstances he might have laughed at the man's Ingenium shirt. "How are you holding up?" the other man asks as he takes a seat opposite. Hisashi manages a broken laugh. "Oh, just fine." Ida winces. "Is there anyone you want to call? Any family or—" "No one," Hisashi sighs. "Just me and Izuku." They sit together in silence for a few seconds before Ida speaks again. "We'll find him. Katsumi has the whole of Ida 10 on high alert, and Tensei's doing overtime. The minute we get a possible sighting, he'll be there. Hisashi will be there too, and may God have mercy on those responsible, because he will not." By the time the van stops, Izuku has cried himself calm. It helps when he tries to think about what a Genium or All Might would do. Well, maybe not All Might, he could just punch a hole in the wall. So he decides to view the situation as training for when he's a hero. So he tries to stay calm, but also alert, so when he's found, he can tell the police all about the villains. He isn't entirely sure what else he should do as someone drags him into a building. He can't help but worry about how long it will be until someone finds him, because he doesn't know where he is. He wishes he has a quirk that could help him get away, or maybe tell someone where he is, because he doesn't want to wait for a hero. He just really wants to go home to Papa. Izuku pauses. The kidnapper growls and gives him a hard yank. Izuku hurries to keep up, mind racing. When they took him from school, he's pretty sure one of them used some sort of warp quirk. And if someone has a warp quirk, maybe Izuku can take it? After all, he's allowed to use his quirk in self-defense, and he just really wants to go home. But he's only ever taken quirks from his papa for practice, and he's never attempted it without touching the person. He doesn't know if he can do it. No, he has to calm down. All Might is always calm, and so Izuku can be too. He isn't sure how he can take a quirk without physical contact, but he has to try, so he reaches out with his senses, the same as when he's feeling about for a quirk with Papa, or at least he tries to, fumbling desperately until he feels something brush against his mind. He latches onto it with all of his might, desperate, because he doesn't know if he'll be able to find it again, and tugs and pulls and wrenches it away. There's a strangled cry from the person next to him, and the bruising grip on him loosens. Izuku is so surprised that he stumbles and falls with enough force that it hurts. He can't do anything to get up, bound as he is, and he panics. He can feel the new quirk settled comfortably under his skin, but he doesn't know how it works. He doesn't know how to activate it. He doesn't even know where he is. Izuku really just wishes his papa were here. Hisashi wishes he could just rip Tsurugame's head off and go on a rampage. He knows he's over-emotional, but he can't help it. It's been hours and they're no closer to locating Izuku, and the detectives won't even tell him anything. And now there's an itch in his throat. "Midoriya?" Ida frowns, concerned, as Hisashi starts to cough. "Are you all right?" Hisashi can't answer. Instead, he doubles over as he chokes on something. There's a crash as Ida drops the coffee mug and calls for help. But Hisashi knows that they can't do anything, so he coughs up a thick black liquid. And then the police station vanishes and he collapses, coughing and spluttering onto a concrete floor. He takes a deep breath and smiles. He doesn't know where he is, but this can't be a coincidence. And with no police around, oh, he is going to enjoy this. He can hear low moaning as he draws himself up, but it's no one important, just some low-level ruffian sprawled onto the concrete floor. He barely spares the bastard a glance, because next to him is a small body, wearing those garish red shoes that Hisashi would know anywhere. It feels surreal as Hisashi carefully removes the bag over Izuku's head. His face is pale, his breathing fast, but it's alright, because he's alive, because Izuku is right here and Hisashi can protect him. Hisashi presses a quick kiss to his son's forehead, wincing at the fever he seems to be running. Then he slips off his suit jacket and uses it to cushion Izuku's head. "Don't worry, Izuku," All for One whispers as he rolls up his sleeves. "I am here."